Coming up on Carolina News Now.
Hey there, I'm Maddie Gardner. Welcome to Carolina News Now. We are bringing you the top stories from both North and South Carolina. So let's take a look at what's in store tonight.
Coming up on Carolina News Now. A single mom puts down a deposit before moving to North Carolina, only to find out she didn't really have a place to stay.
He basically kept telling me there's other people interested in this house, so you need to hurry up and give me the deposit.
Her experience and how to spot red flags in your rental search. Plus, a loved one is buried. A month later, his grave is washing away.
Nobody seemed like they would like to do anything.
What the family hopes to see and why the cemetery says it's not their problem. And lower air quality could mean a rise in natural disasters, the impact carbon dioxide levels are having on the Carolinas, and what it could mean for you.
A lot in store on today's episode of Carolina News Now. We are bringing you the top stories from both North and South Carolina, powered by television stations in both states. We will also get a check of your weekend weather forecast across the region with meteorologist Rachel Culture coming up in just a bit. But we start with this. A single mother moved her family, her 3 kids, from New York all the way down to North Carolina, expecting when she got here that she'd have a place to call home. She found a house, she paid a deposit, she even paid application fees, thousands of dollars here, only to find out that she was being scammed. Sarah Blake Morgan has her story and the investigation into what happened.
It was the perfect place for this single mom of 3.
It was in the same school district as my kids, so I thought, great.
Marie Seal moved her young family to Gastonia last year, hoping for a fresh start.
It became too difficult for me to maintain in New York with my 3 children, so I came down here.
She's been searching for an affordable place to live since April, spending hundreds on application fees.
Between $700, $900.
But last month, she says she came across a listing for this home on Zillow. She instantly reached out to the contact on the site who claimed they owned the property.
And he said, okay, the property is available. I can go look at it at my own convenience, which I did.
She got in with the lockbox code she says he gave her and ended up loving the home.
He basically kept telling me there's other people interested in this house, so you need to hurry up and give me the deposit.
Seal says she transferred him $2,000 and came back to sign the lease with him in person.
While I was there, another real estate agent showed up with his client to look at the house. And it kind of threw me back because I'm like, wait, I've already put in paperwork for this house. I've already applied for this house.
Marie says the person who claimed to be the homeowner never showed up to this house here that day, and they never answered her phone calls or text messages again. So of course, I called them, and they didn't pick up for me either.
The very last conversation I had with him was May 12th, when he told me he was heading back to the property.
A search of the home's tax records reveals the homeowner's name is not who claimed to be talking to Seal. In fact, his name wasn't found online at all.
That sucks.
Finding affordable housing in this market is already incredibly tough. And all this mother wants is a fair shot to provide for her family.
How did I fall for this?
In Gastonia, Sarah Blake Morgan, WBTV, on your side.
Oh goodness, you feel for her because it is such a difficult market for home buyers out there, and then to lose thousands of dollars, you definitely want to make sure to do your due diligence and that it is a reputable and legitimate listing there online. Well, if you live in North Myrtle Beach or you have plans to visit this summer, make sure you pack your reusable bags. A ban on single-use plastics takes effect in just a few weeks, starting on July 1st. Here's Eric Richardson with how people in the area are getting ready.
Business owners, residents, and even tourists are getting ready for the July 1st ban on single-use plastic bags in North Myrtle Beach.
I think it's a little too much. I think I get why, but you know, for places like this, you know, we rely heavily on bags and stuff like that.
Sunday Best Jamaican Cuisine is already adjusting ahead of the new rule, banning distribution of single-use plastic bags citywide.
We've been serving it through the styrofoam containers since we opened, so I guess we've been prepared for a while.
Braden Brown thinks that the ban is long overdue.
I think that's a great idea, keep the trash off the beach and help out the environment.
The City Council first voted on the ordinance a few years ago, but postponed it due in part to the pandemic. City officials know this will be an adjustment for everyone.
Fines are going to be very unlikely. This is a new thing for the entire area. The city of North Myrtle Beach is the only municipality in the Grand Strand that has an ordinance like this. And because it's new, because fewer people are familiar with this type of ordinance, the goal for our public safety department and for city leaders and for the Destination North Myrtle Beach, the area Chamber of Commerce, is to educate people.
Most opinions downtown think that it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea. I said, actually, I was a commercial diver, swam here in all the marinas and swam offshore for 20 years. And the bottom line is when we go offshore in the boats, we know an aluminum can will dissolve out there. Plastic never goes away.
Good idea?
Yeah, it's a good idea, right?
Because we don't want them in the ocean.
Let's say it again.
We don't want them in the ocean.
Now, one other thing to mention is that if you have a lot of those single-use bags at home, you can take those into your local grocery store and use those in there. Just remember that you will not be given a single-use plastic bag beginning on July 1st.
It might take some adjusting. I've visited cities that have an ordinance similar to this one, and you have to remember to pack those reusable bags or bring your own plastic bags. But it seems like most people are in favor of this. Eric, thank you so much for bringing us that story. A good reminder, too, for those of us who don't live in North Myrtle Beach but may want to visit. We head south now to South Carolina, the Charleston area. You know, your loved one's grave is supposed to be their final resting place, but it's also a place where family members can go and find peace and perhaps some closure. But a family in South Carolina says visiting their loved one at the gravesite is anything but peaceful. The gravesite continues to be washed away. We turn now to that story.
Imagine you just had to bury a family member. Months later, their gravesite is washing away. That is exactly what's happening to multiple grave sites at Hillcrest Cemetery. Michael Person was buried in February. His family says the soil over his grave has been washing away ever since.
Until we know that he is good, you know, he ain't. He is not, you know, and nobody seemed like they would like to do anything. You know, they just, well, if it rains again, we'll see. No, I'm tired of the raining again. I would like him moved because it's going to be the same problem.
Dickerson Mortuary Services tells me they have repeatedly replaced the soil and grass over the vault 3 times, and it is up to the cemetery management to fix drainage problems.
When we get called out to correct an issue with a grave, maybe the first time, sometimes the second time is no resolved. This has been going on more than 2-3 times, so what else can we do to fix the problem but probably have them remain moved to another part of the cemetery?
I spoke with Alan McDonald, the president of Hillcrest, and he says they must wait for the grass to grow, and then it is up to the funeral homes to decide how they want to fix it. In Somerville, Anna Harris, Live 5 News.
And I'm joined now by meteorologist Rachel Coulter. Rachel, we keep doing this where we match. So I have to point it out again. Yeah. We must be on the same calendar. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Tracking a lot of stuff with the forecast for sure.
Yes, so the weekend is ahead. Many people probably have plans to go to the beach because school is out for most Carolina students. What are we looking at here?
So we do have some shower and storm chances in the forecast, especially as we head into the weekend, and even some hotter temperatures as well. So definitely want to dive into all of that here for you guys. Let's start with the temperatures first, because I think tomorrow, if you've got any plans tomorrow, it's looking great. But by the time we get towards the second half of the weekend and start of next week, that's when we're going to really start to notice things heat up. Now, if you're going to be headed out towards the mountains, we'll still be in the 70s on Saturday, but in those low 80s for Sunday, mid to upper 80s on Monday, with Asheville potentially seeing a high temperature of 90 degrees by Monday. So it just goes to show the trend. And I wanted to include Monday in your weekend forecast just to give you an idea of what to expect going into next week, since it will be so steamy outside. But there's a look at the Piedmont region. If you're going to be staying in the central portions of the Carolinas this weekend, temperatures in the 80s for the most part, except for Columbia on Saturday, but we are warming up quickly at low to mid 90s on Sunday and then mid to upper 90s by the time we start off next week. Here's your beach forecast in terms of your temperatures. Likely the 80s for most spots all the way through the weekend as your high temperatures out along the coast. But now let's talk about your rain chances, because that Saturday morning, after a dry Friday, we're going to start to see those rain chances pick up just a little bit, especially in those morning and afternoon hours. You can see that's 12 o'clock, starting to see those showers and storms bubble up as a low pressure system works to the north and east. So storm chances look to be the greatest in central and southeastern portions of North and South Carolina, more so just passing rain showers there for our northern counties, which will be good news that it's not going to be all day washout type conditions. But Saturday evening, that's what radar could look like. So eastern portions of the Carolinas seeing some of that shower storm activity will dry out for the most part overnight, and then we could see some additional showers and storms bubble up for some of our beach communities heading into your Sunday afternoon, maybe even a stray shower out towards the mountains. So just keep that in mind and certainly tune into your local station for that forecast over the next couple of days, as since we do have that potential for rain and certainly much hotter conditions next week.
Yes, I feel like we're getting to that time of year when people are on vacations and they're tuned into that radar always. So some good advice there. Rachel, please come back and join us in just a few minutes. We'll have another check of your weekend forecast just ahead. Let's take a look at what's coming up next after the break on Carolina News Now. NOAA finds that carbon dioxide levels are rising. We tell you what this could mean for the Carolinas and the weather patterns that we see each year. Plus, a settlement reached in the Andrew Brown Jr. shooting on eastern North Carolina. We'll talk about that. And support is growing for a joint operations center in Charleston, a story that we've been talking about here on Carolina News Now. We'll break it down, and of course we'll have Rachel back for another look at your weekend forecast. Carolina News Now is coming back in just 45 seconds. Stick around. Welcome back to Carolina News Now. I'm Maddie Gardner. Thanks for sticking with us. If you are just joining us, we are bringing you the top stories from both North and South Carolina. We do this toward the end of every week to get you ready for the weekend ahead. We're taking a look at those top stories, including your weekend regional weather forecast with meteorologist Rachel Culture, breaking it down by state and by area so you really know what to expect. We are going to start on the North Carolina coast. NOAA just measured carbon dioxide levels, and they found that they are rising. So that could, of course, increase the global temperature. It could also affect the atmosphere and push it into territory that we haven't seen in millions of years. It could even affect the severity of our weather system. So Derek Rush spoke to experts about the impacts that we could see in the Carolinas.
Oh yeah, we've been putting in a new patio in our yard and it's like really hot outside. So.
Beating the heat is something that meteorologists explained is getting harder and harder to do when outdoors because of increased carbon dioxide levels.
As carbon dioxide goes up and builds more and more in the atmosphere, heat leaving the earth cannot go through carbon dioxide, so it's a greenhouse gas to keep us warmer.
Experts from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration explained these increased levels are the highest they've been dating as far back as 6,000 years prior to the Industrial Revolution, which can cause varying effects.
We use models to study this problem, and based on the models, we think that the global warming is leading to some intensification of hurricanes.
And with temperatures above average in most parts of the east, experts say impacts on sea level rise in the east could get more and more drastic.
We are on a trajectory that's more or less set at this point. So places like eastern North Carolina can expect a foot to a foot and a quarter of sea level rise in the next 30 years.
You know, we're already seeing more frequent coastal flooding events. Sometimes just from a full moon or northeast wind, we're seeing more coastal flooding. And so that's going to keep on happening more and more frequently as the oceans slowly rise.
Simply put, experts explain more heat.
I grew up in Georgia. It's both like hot and humid. It's like Florida, just as bad as Florida.
Means more water than some may have bargained for.
Now, when that happens, the atmosphere begins to expand. It can hold more moisture, and therefore when we have storms and hurricanes, they can dump a whole lot more rain than they could when the atmosphere was cooler.
And that was Derek Rush reporting for us. Derek, thank you so much. We are going to stay in eastern North Carolina for a story that is making national headlines. The Pasquotank County Sheriff's Office settled with the family of Andrew Brown Jr. this week. Now, that is the man who was shot by sheriff's deputies after his family says he was trying to drive away from them. The deputies say that Brown drove toward them. He died from a gunshot wound to the back of his head. Once again, the county sheriff's office settled with the family this week. Maddie Kurth is there with more on the settlement and where this money is going to go.
Andrew Brown Jr.'s family continues to grieve his death, but Tuesday, a small victory.
The Pasquotank County and the sheriff office realizing that settlement need to happen here. The kids need to be taken care of.
The family reached a settlement in their civil lawsuit against the sheriff's office for $3 million. This just over 1 year after the man was shot and killed by deputies serving drug-related warrants to his Elizabeth City home. Attorneys say the money will be used to secure a solid future and education for Brown's 7 surviving children, 5 of which are still minors. And his legacy continues.
A lot of good things with the Sheriff's Office as far as training that have come through this. We have severely advanced our training to be able to do our job more efficiently.
It's about Andrew Brown Jr. Nothing more, nothing less. It's about Andrew Brown Jr. His life, he lived, and about his children, making sure that their dreams did not die with their father on that day.
But as attorneys stood here in front of the Pasquotank County Courthouse to formally announce the $3 million settlement, they wouldn't say how much of the money will actually make it to the hands of Andrew Brown Jr.'s family.
That's confidential.
The family's attorney maintains that no amount of money can alleviate grief.
You can get $100 million. You cannot change the fact that Andrew Brown is gone. Steps need to be taken towards healing.
As for rulings beyond the civil case,
it's an ongoing federal investigation. That's up for the Department of Justice, for the federal government to decide if whether criminal charges can be brought.
Until then, the Brown family takes a step closer to closure. In Pasquotank County, Maddie Kurth, WITN News.
Maddie, thank you so much. We know that you will keep us updated for that federal case that you were mentioning there at the end. Let's go toward Wilmington, North Carolina now. A former middle school teacher will spend what is likely the rest of his life in prison serving time for sexually abusing students. Our Zach Solon was in the courtroom when the judge handed down those charges and has details on what comes next.
All right, guys, I love you.
When you drop your kids off at school each morning, safety is top of mind.
What we want to know as parents in North Carolina is that when our children go to school, Little League, summer camp, when they're online with their friends, that they're safe. That's the most important job we have as adults.
For more than 20 years, former Roland Grice Middle School band teacher Peter Frank formed intimate and sometimes sexual relationships with his students. Now he'll likely spend the rest of his life in prison. North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein credits Frank's victims for their bravery in sharing their stories.
When someone has been abused the way that these children were, it takes a lot of work and time to work through those issues. And sometimes you never get fully to the other side. But what I pray is that this verdict and this sentence will give them some hope, something to springboard and advance their healing.
Attorney Martin Ramey is representing Frank's victims in a civil lawsuit. He says there is more work to be done to protect students.
We have to pay more attention to people's complaints. We have to investigate more, and we have to take the issue of childhood sexual abuse in our schools more seriously.
Stein says that work starts with changing laws to hold dangerous teachers accountable.
There's always going to be work. We can't wish away the fact that there are deranged, dangerous people who are out to hurt others. So what we have to do is strengthen our laws so that they protect us to the maximum level possible. And then when there are wrongdoers, we hold them accountable.
And keep your children safe.
Zach, thank you so much. A group of Charleston activists say a petition against a joint operations center in the city is not representative of the people who live there. Now, this is a story that we talked about last week on Carolina News Now. That joint operations center would have the ability to monitor security cameras throughout the Charleston area 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, of course, there was some concern about that. But this particular group says the people who came out against the center did not speak to the people who would be impacted most. So differing opinions here. Emily Zukowski has more.
We have people who are not from our community trying to tell us what best practices are.
Today, activists calling out the Charleston Democratic Socialists of America and others who publicly spoke in opposition of the plan to create the North Charleston Joint Operations Center.
I don't know why these groups thought that they could be our voice. I don't get that. Do they really think that we're too stupid to speak up for ourselves?
The activists, led by Pastor Thomas Dixon, say the DSA should have never started a petition against the Joint Operations Center, a real-time 24/7 monitoring center to monitor hundreds of cameras in the city. The petition argued the increased surveillance would lead to over-policing, an invasion of privacy, and the targeting of minorities. Activists today said they should have gone to the people who are most impacted by violence first, because they're in favor of the cameras.
We are at a by any means necessary moment. I don't want to see another crying mother.
Walk a mile in our shoes. Come visit the neighborhoods.
Dixon says they are prepared to ensure that no mismanagement or injustice happens without the police department getting a serious response from the community.
We are not stupid or naive to the potential problems that could be created.
Don't disrespect us like we don't know police brutality, because in this skin, we live it.
Dixon is asking those who spoke against the plan to stand down and instead stand with them to find solutions for gun violence.
Instead of saying, we don't need this, we don't need that, work with us about what we do need.
Emily Zukowski staying on top of that story for us. Emily, thank you so much. Back with meteorologist Rachel Coulter here on Carolina News Now, taking another look at the chance for rain over the weekend. Rachel, should we expect a washout?
So it won't be a washout. I think the best chance of seeing some showers and storms this weekend will actually be for eastern portions of North and South Carolina. But we do have the potential elsewhere as well. So I want to walk you through that and talk about temperatures as well, because Friday really across the region is looking fantastic. Cold fronts allowing for drier conditions, more seasonable conditions for Friday. So if you have outdoor plans and are a little flexible, it's probably going to be the best chance to get outside. Saturday, we're going to be tracking some scattered showers and storms. So there's Friday morning. You can see those nice conditions we have across the area. Those will continue through the evening hours with mostly dry conditions area-wide, even as we wrap up your Friday. Now let's get into Saturday. So there's Saturday morning. You'll notice some scattered showers starting to pop up on radar. We're going to be tracking a low pressure system that's going to work its way along that stalled front and off towards the north and east. So by 12 o'clock, there's Saturday, and you can see what radar could look like with some of those scattered showers and storms over portions of central and southeastern South Carolina. We could see some of those across the Piedmont region of North Carolina as well. Working our way through the day, a lot of that will be confined to eastern portions of the Carolinas. We'll dry out for the most part overnight and into Sunday morning outside of a stray shower or so out towards I-95. And then by the afternoon hours on Sunday, we could see some additional redevelopment in those southeastern counties. So temperature wise, we're going to be pretty seasonable Friday and Saturday, and then by Sunday afternoon and heading into next week, those temperatures will be heating up quickly into the 90s. I know here in Charlotte, we're forecasting a high temperature of 98 degrees by the time we get towards the middle of next week.
That was a band, Rachel. It's not a temperature.
The band and our forecast.
Yeah, 90s band and also our forecast. So here in Charlotte, that's the temperature. Is there the potential for it to be even hotter across other parts of the Carolinas?
100%. I wouldn't be surprised to see some 100-degree marks out there. Feels like temperatures, even if you do live in the Charlotte area, not necessarily a little bit farther south and east, will exceed 100 degrees as well. So next week, it's one of those weeks where it could be dangerous heat and humidity.
Yeah.
You may have some of those heat alerts get issued by the National Weather Service offices. So here's your heads up looking into next week after the weekend forecast.
Yes, the station you are watching Carolina News Now on is the station you should be tuning into for that local weather forecast. Rachel, Thank you so much for giving us a little insight into the weekend. And thank you guys for watching Carolina News Now. Once again, we are bringing you the top stories from both North and South Carolina toward the end of every week. And we really do appreciate you watching. We will see you again next week. Have a wonderful and safe weekend.